Hello all and welcome back to the AT-AT Chat. Today will be another review of the recent Mandalorian episode titled The Siege. Now, just like the last review, I'm going to kind of just riff and no script. We're just going to do a little bit no spoilers, and then we're going to go into just some of the plot and where I think it's going, because to be frank, this was probably my second favorite episode of this season. It has arguably the best ending so far I've seen in the entire season, but we'll get to that. So overall, like I said, great episode from start to finish. We returned to familiar places. Obviously, you can probably guess that's Navarro based on the fact that Carl Weathers directed this episode. With that said, I think he did a fantastic job. I have no idea about his other directorial debuts out there in the world. If he has them, awesome. But this felt natural. It felt like it fit right back into the vibe of Star Wars. And I just like how excited he was on social media to just continuously let us know that his episode is coming out on Friday. I thought that was really charming. So beyond that, visual elements in this episode are unreal. We get to see some really cool ships. We get to see some pretty intense battles. And I've heard a couple of reviews talking about how they were a little underwhelming as compared to some of the other elements in this episode, but most likely I'd say that's down to the fact that Carl Weathers is directing and he's kind of an old school kind of campy 80s kind of guy. You know, he was in Predator, like a great movie, so you know what I'm saying. It's not to perhaps today's standards of choreography, if you will. So now let's just kind of go into spoilers and just talk about things, because I just don't know how else to not talk about spoilers. So the show opens back up. Mandalorian is back in his ship heading to Navarro. So we're going back to Navarro, which I like. Navarro's really cool, and there's just something about that planet that kind of reminds me of all the different aspects of Star Wars, and we kind of see that in this episode too. I'll explain that a little further down the line. But it opens back up. We go into the underground covert where the Watch was residing, hiding from everybody else, and there's just a bunch of people kind of pillaging that place, trying to get whatever they can, and then all of a sudden, Cara Dune shows up and just kicks all their asses. She's the marshal now of Navarro. She has a new role. So it seems like Navarro is basically becoming the next up-and-coming, functional little town, now free of the Empire's reign, so to speak. You know, Greef Karga looks very regal in this episode. You know, he's a lot more important now to the society other than giving bounties out to bounty hunters, etc. He's kind of like a nobleman or something. And even what I believe was the original cantina where all the scummy people used to hang out, all the bounty hunters, now it's a school. And I thought that was really neat. There's a protocol droid just teaching people at the school, these little children. And there's a funny bit, you know, when Baby Yoda is brought to Navarro, everybody's tossing him around. It's like, oh, thank God, a little baby's back. I thought that was cute. It was funny to see. And they place him in class, right? Because they have to go on a mission. Basically, the Mandalorian needs his ship really repaired because of the terrible job the Mon Calamari did in the previous episode with just their weird fishnet wiring job. So in order to get that fixed, he has to help out Greef Karga and Cara Dune on a mission to an Imperial base on Navarro. And this is in that kind of lava location, which I always love seeing. I love seeing it in episode 7 and 8 of the first season. It's got a very strange, otherworldly Star Wars vibe. So I just love it. I love seeing it. And also, this Imperial base reminded me a lot of Jedi Fallen Order. It was cool seeing scout troopers too, and the whole OT aesthetic really was hammered home in this episode at the end. I'm all for it. You know, I'm not exactly one for hammer me over the head with fan service, but when it works, and it's effective. So basically, the idea is just for them to destroy this Imperial holdout here. And, you know, kind of figure out what's going on as well, or at least it seems like they discover something a little more nefarious than what was originally intended with this excursion, right? So they leave Baby Yoda with the class and they head out. And one little side thing too with Baby Yoda, with a fellow classmate, there's a bit of Force use in this episode, which was used in a very funny way, where the other kid in class is snacking, Baby Yoda is like, "Can I have some more?" And the kid's like, "No, you can't have any of my snacks," so he steals it using the Force, eats it. Pretty funny. Thought it was great. And you know what? I just realized I forgot something very important. The Mythrol from episode 1 is back in this and also part of this whole ragtag group. And it's funny, the first time that he actually sees the Mandalorian show back up, he just dispenses all of this whatever. I don't know, a mithril biology, you know what I mean? I guess that's the musk. But it was really funny. You could tell he was very scared, and he's just sort of indebted for 350 years, I guess, of service to Greef Karga for whatever his crimes were for escaping, and you know, it's either that or the carbonite. So anyway, he's back. He did really well in this episode. I thought he was a little kind of campy in the first debut episode of The Mandalorian, but yeah, great now. I thought overall he was very welcomed to the team. So on this base, basically, it ends up being a bit more of an Imperial holdout than anticipated. They were going to go in and destroy the base. They send in the Mithril, who acknowledges the funny thing in Star Wars of there being no support beams anywhere, or something to hold on to protect you from falling to your death. But either way, he has to press all these buttons and make this place unstable just so it explodes. They succeed in doing that, but then when they're trying to escape, there is just so much infantry than they expected. So much more than they expected, and it takes a lot to actually get out of there, but along the way they discover something horrifying. They see a hologram of, I can't remember his name right now, but it was the cloner from season 1. Maybe Dr. Pershing, was that his name? Yeah. And he's talking about extracting blood because it has M counts in it, and I'm assuming midi-chlorian. I'm assuming it's force related, and they're doing transfusions, which I can only imagine are for these either super soldiers in these suits or whatever the heck we saw at the end of this episode, and these things in these containers, supposedly clones of some kind. They look deformed. Some people are saying it's Snoke, some people are saying it could be Palpatine. I don't think it's either. I think it's something completely different, or else these people would all be in the unknown regions with the Sith cult, doing whatever they were doing with Palpatine there. I don't think these clones have anything to do with other clones. However, it may inform down the line how Exegol proceeds with Palpatine. Who knows? But either way, now we know why they need the child, right? They need to take all of his blood to continue their experiments. That's kind of horrifying. So we know Moff Gideon's plan, basically. And yes, it seems like at the end of this episode, you know, we're jumping a little bit ahead here, that he is sort of breeding or creating and trying to do something with these super soldiers, sort of like Dark Trooper vibe thing going on, where, yeah, who knows what's going to happen. But it was just a hint of what's to come. And now he's also like on the hunt for Din Djarin specifically, because one of the people that fixed his ship ended up putting a tracker on there for Moff Gideon. So things are going to be ramping up really quickly. But one of the highlights of this episode is, without a doubt, the escape from this Imperial holdout here. What seems to be to some sort of random repulsor lift truck kind of thing. They just get into it. Cara Dune drives it. Greef Karga's on the gunner. And there's like a chase with all of these scout troopers, which is unbelievable to watch. Some of them just die immediately because of the treacherous terrain, and it's just super fun. It's very classic A New Hope Star Wars with the gunner and Cara Dune being like, "What, are you gonna do your job back there? What?" And he's like, "Well, why don't you come back here and try it out and see if it's so easy?" It's like the kind of fun banter we're all used to. And Greef Karga does a pretty good job of taking out these speeders and TIE fighters, etc. So overall, just visually, visual effects, all that stuff, very pleasing. Like I said in every other review, this season is upping the ante on the movie qualityness of The Mandalorian, and it's fantastic. So yeah, that's basically it. There's a bit of an exchange between one of the X-Wing pilots we saw from 2 episodes ago with Cara Dune and the Rebellion, and knowing that she's from Alderaan, and just, you know, one of those, will she join, will she not join, will she help the New Republic, etc. There's something going on there, maybe she'll leave the group and go off and finally help the cause, if you will, but unsure. So the way this episode is pretty much closes out is with Moff Gideon, and it's great because we get to see a nice Imperial shuttle that is using very classic A New Hope vibes, walking through the corridors, seeing the aesthetic of this place. There's just red behind him and all that stuff. Just a pleasing dark side Imperial vibe that I very much love. And hearing his music cue, the dun da dun da dun, that's so iconic to me now that, you know, if I hear that for a second, I just think of Moff Gideon. That's a hard feat to pull off, and great job, Ludwig. Great job. So yeah, that's it. This was a fantastic episode from start to finish. Great job, Carl Weathers. Great job, Gina Carano. You know, regardless of her online presence, she did well in this episode. I love the chemistry between the Mithril and Greef Karga. And yeah, we're now into the main plot set up in season 1 finding out why did they need the child, what are the Imperials after, what is this altercation going to be with Moff Gideon and the child and Din, and we're all leading to Ahsoka as well, I think, in the next episode, because Dave Filoni's directing it, so things are going to get intense, and I'm not ready for it, but I'm super excited. So tell me down below in the comments what you thought of this episode. Definitely wasn't filler in my opinion, and if you think that, oh well. So as always, may the Force be with you. AT-AT is signing off.